I'm your host, Keith Weinhold. It's the episode that your boss does not want you to listen to. It sounds good to quit your day job and start your daydream, but how do you actually face the fear and do it? Get insight and tactics on this from both I and the co-founder of one of America's most influential mastermind groups today on Get Rich Education. Welcome to GRE. From Melbourne, Australia to Melbourne, Florida, and across 188 nations worldwide, it's the voice of real estate investing since 2014. They want you to think that you have to live a life of less. Old-fashioned financial advice is scarcity-based because it informs you about living a life of less. For example, like, hey, turn those free Costco samples into dinner. Oh, there's a crafty idea for living better. Hey, sometimes you can randomly apply a Save 20 promo code and it works. Saving money on Orville Redenbacher Smart Pop isn't going to change your life. Earning a free box of White Castle frozen chicken sliders is not expanding your means. You're going to learn two things that help me quit my day job and start my daydream in today's interview coming up shortly. It's not about living a safe life. Often, safety is the polar opposite of freedom. It's about doing stuff that's not normal. Normal is a synonym for mediocre, and few really aspire to build a mediocre life, but so many of us fall into it. Before our interview about how to quit your job, I've got some housing news. CoreLogic expects home prices to increase 3.2% over the next 12 months, and really that's pretty modest on its own. Of course, here at GRE, you know better. You know that with your 20% down payment and creating leverage, you're taking that 3.2% appreciation and multiplying it by 5 to get a 16% return on your skin in the game. You got the return on both your money and the bank's money. Well, therefore, that 16% is one of just 5 ways that you're paid simultaneously. And mainstream media keeps reporting that it's a bad time to buy a house amidst these spiked interest rates. And you know, that's a message for, well, the mainstream. See, that's a message that's directed toward primary residence buyers. It's a different story for income property buyers because the tenant pays the entire interest payment for you, and rents have had some healthy increases too. When it comes to buying a primary residence, of course, prices have rocketed higher since the beginning of last year. Mortgage rates bottomed out at 2.7% back then, and they're about 7% today, and they could exceed 8% by year end. And let's take more bigger picture context. Freddie Mac's 50-year average is 7.75% on the 30-year fixed rate loan. So therefore, these rates are normal. Get used to them. They had previously been artificially low. The saving grace of higher interest rates is that there is less competition and buyer contingencies have returned again this year. But yet, yeah, for those primary residence owners, they probably don't offset the higher interest rates. But in income property, not only does your tenant pay the interest, higher mortgage rates also lead to higher rents, like we've discussed previously. A 5-1 ARM, rather than a fixed rate mortgage, that can lower your interest rate by perhaps as much as 1.5% today. And then in 5 years, you might be able to refinance an ARM to a lower rate. And in the worst case, rates rise further. Your rate could adjust up. Well, then your payment would be less now and more later. And in high inflation, you would rather have preserved $1 today than $1 tomorrow. Now, with housing supply this tight, if a tenant loses their job, you can probably expect an incoming tenant to occupy it quickly. The job market is still fairly strong, but where exactly does that new tenant come from? Well, oftentimes they downgrade from a more expensive unit that they had occupied previously and move into yours. Whether we have a recession or not, you're going to want another income stream. As you know, you've got a beautiful inflation profiting benefit on your long-term fixed interest rate debt right now. Understand that if the high inflation starts to wane and ease up, then mortgage rates are probably falling too, and that is because inflation and interest rates are positively correlated. High inflation typically means high interest rates. Low inflation typically means low interest rates. So all 5 profit centers from your income property, they're almost never all elevated at the same time. Some of those 5 ways are higher than others, and some of those are lower than others. It just seems like higher prices and higher interest rates get the attention of the major media. That's because they're focused on primary residence buyers, not income property buyers like us. Now, our COO here, Andrea, is a Go Abundance member, and it's terrific to get the insights of that group's co-founder today about how to quit your day job.
Americans are not saving for retirement. It's going to get worse as people live longer, so you need to think differently, but you can't lose your time. Real estate is the investment vehicle that has created more million and billionaires than anything else. Get Rich Education is one of America's top investing shows disrupting Wall Street. Your host, Keith Weinhold, is a true financial educator and has been an income property investor since 2002. Get Rich Education has created millions in passive monthly income for its followers. Now, Keith has a free course. Real Estate Pays 5 Ways. Sign up now at getricheducation.com/course. Invest in what produces income for you now and later. Use the link in the description to take the course for free. Real Estate Pays 5 Ways. Get Rich Education is on every podcasting platform and has its own native iOS and Android apps. Join Get Rich Education Nation to create financial freedom through real estate investing. Subscribe wherever you listen.
Financially free by age 40, today's guest has authored numerous books, including his new one. It's called The Quitters Manifesto. Notably, he co-founded one of the most influential mastermind groups in the nation. It is high level, focusing on entrepreneurship and lifestyle. There are a lot of real estate investors in that mastermind group as well. You might have heard of it. It is called Go Abundance. Welcome to GRE, Tim Rode.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Keith. I really appreciate it, man.
Yes, Tim, The Quitters Manifesto, your book has an interesting subtitle, Quit a Job You Hate for the Work You Love. I think that's something that we would all like to do. And it certainly sounds good, but it often engenders a lot of fear in someone in trying to do that and to make that leap. And Tim, before we go into that book and talk about it more, just give us some more about your background and especially some of the real estate experience that you have.
Thanks for asking, Keith. My background is in real estate. I barely graduated high school, never went to college, but I found my niche, and that was selling real estate at 26 years old. And I sold a lot of real estate from 26 to 40. And what I did well is I invested in real estate while I went along. I was my own best customer. And then when I got kind of sick of real estate, of selling real estate, the career had kind of oxidized, and we are going to talk about that within the Quitters Manifesto. I did something most don't do. I tapped out at the top of my game. I was kind of like Barry Sanders, the fullback or the running back for Detroit Lions.
Yes.
I was leading the league. I was really good at what I did. And I decided, you know what, this just isn't serving me anymore. I'm going to try a whole new field and just see how I do at that. And so I went from listing and selling real estate to merely investing in real estate. And that's what I did from about 2000 to 2007, and actually sold right into the top of the California market at the height of everything. Sold 17 properties with 52 tenants. And candidly, I've never worked a day of my life since. So that's kind of my full circle from being the lovable loser in high school to, for the last 23 years, I do what I call getting the goods in the woods. I invest in other people's, projects. And that's how I feed my family.
Yeah, well, very good. That's quite aspirational. And really, that's where a lot of people want to be. But so many people have a hard time making that leap to, as I like to say, quit their day job, especially if they're not passionate about it, and start living their daydream. And I know one lens in which you view all of this through is through something you call the Io Quotient, the I/O quotient. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, well, this came from a book by Naval Ravikant, if you're familiar with him. And so the Io quotient is most people live in obligation instead of interest. We like to live in interest instead of obligation. And that means doing what you want to do most of the time. We all have things that we have to do, but my co-author, Pat Hyman, and I have prided ourselves in decades now of doing the things we want to do rather than live how most do, doing the things they have to do all day long. And that is obligation and not getting to do what they want to do, which is interest. So that's the interest over obligation quotient, which is a huge point of our book.
It can often make one feel alive when they get to do what they're interested in. One might think of that as having options over obligations. Even if your day job isn't so bad, wouldn't it be nice to have the option over the obligation if you could possibly have that?
Yeah, and that's what we found early on. And actually, I lived that way when I was selling real estate, when I was investing in real estate. One of the great things about being self-employed is you get to put whatever you want to do right into your schedule. And my kids are grown now, but I really pride myself when I coached their little league. I coached for Boys and Girls Club. I never missed a parent-teacher conference. And that was, those are the things that matter. And so often we have to do what the man wants us to do, and we're kind of choosing an alternative lifestyle of doing really what you want to do most of the time. So.
Yeah, it's difficult to put a value on something like being that little league coach and having more time for your kids. And oftentimes it's often something that we want to get away from, a day job that we're not passionate about. Investing our time in something, our time, that resource is irreplaceable, irreplenishable. We're never going to get that back. And sometimes we feel like our day job is sucking our soul. You have something that you call the soul-sucking meter, maybe so that people can measure how much of their soul that they're losing at their job. Tell us about the soul-sucking meter.
Yeah, boy, what a great segue. Because this is, where does it all start? Because you ask, well, how do I know that this career is not for me? And that's where we start, is how bad is it? And for me, like from 26 to 35, I love selling real estate. And then all of a sudden I looked up and my career had oxidated. It had kind of rusted. And I'm sure many of you can feel it, where what you did, it was so cool for a while, no longer serves you. And that's where I found myself, and it had oxidated. In my world, the soul sucking meter was high. And what you do, here's what you look at is take a graph scale of 1 to 10, and you look at these 5 different things to know how bad does what I'm currently do suck or not suck. Okay. And number 1 is your compensation. Are they paying you fairly for what you're bringing to the table every day? Number 2, do they respect you? Do they listen to your ideas? Do you feel like you're part of the team? Number 3, do you fit within the team? Are you a good cultural fit with the people that you work with every day? And number 4, how does it feel when you go to work, when you wake up every day? Is this something that you want to do, as you go through? And number 4, is this something that you feel like, number 5, that's something that you feel like you could do for some time? Or is that just absolutely, it's done, it is time to move on? So if you take those 5 things and put them into a meter, is it a 10, a 9, an 8? That's where I was the first 3 or 4 years I sold real estate. At the end, it just didn't fit anymore. I could just tell I was just done. If you ever had one of those, I'm mad as hell, I'm not going to take it anymore moments, That's where I was. So that soul-sucking meter can help you determine, is it a good fit for you moving forward?
Oh, those 5 steps in that framework for the soul-sucking meter are really going to help a lot of people. In a sense, maybe it's a way to measure the amount of pain that you're feeling in your current position. That can be one way to think about it. And Tim, I used to have a day job where I was a government employee for a state Department of Transportation doing construction inspection and engineering work. And it's not something that I was passionate about, but it had the elements of what most people would consider a good job with a good rate of pay and 7.2 weeks of paid vacation and a pension. And in 2016, I decided to walk away from all of that. I had good success in real estate, and that allowed me to do that. And I really think the 2 things that made me go ahead and do that scary thing, and it was scary, and give my notice and quit my job were, number 1, try it. And number 2, be irreplaceable. Those were a couple of things that happened to work for me. Number 1, try it. If I don't try to quit my job, I'll never know. And I could probably always fall back on that or something like it. And then that second one, be irreplaceable, is that at my government day job, I had an employee number. And if I left that position, someone else would come in with that same employee number and same position number and replace me. So I don't want to feel like a replaceable cog in this one life on earth that I have. And then I went off and poured more energy into this platform, Get Rich Education, something where I'm not replaceable. So those are a couple of things that helped me decide that it was time. Get introspective. Number 1, try it. And number 2, be irreplaceable.
Yeah, boy, that really fits from where I was when I was a grocery clerk before I got into listing and selling real estate. And I was very replaceable. And I think your try it was a good thing to look at what's next. And this fits right into something we talk about in the book. And that is, if you're like on you're able to be on the trapeze, like the flying trapeze. And this is our version of try it. We created this very tactical book with different ways to help you, quote, try it. And for us, it's like you're swinging on a trapeze, ready to catch the next trapeze that takes you to where you want to go. And that is our, quote, try it, is jump on this trapeze that takes you from the chasm of where you've been to where you want to go.
And often for a lot of people in our world, that safety net is that residual income that comes from real estate investing.
I think that's what helps people have the options that we were talking about earlier to make the moves that are so scary. And boy, Keith, you said it. It is scary when you're standing at the edge of the cliff and you got to just leap and take that next move. And that's the trapeze we're talking about. You have to have faith that that next trapeze is going to be there for you to grab onto it and not fall.
That analogy of the trapeze, yes. I have learned that it is healthy in your growth to regularly do something new that's scary. Now, I can't explain the psychology behind all of that, but if you think back to when you were a child, you more often did things that were new and scary, and you grew from that experience. For example, maybe when you were 11 years old, that's the first time you ever tried swimming in a swimming pool with water that was so deep, it was over your head. It was new. It was scary. You tried it. You steeled yourself and you grew from that experience. Regularly doing things that are new and scary. Having that trust that that next trapeze is going to be there for you.
Yeah. And that is the scary thing. And you said it, when we're kids, we're fearless. We don't even, there's what if I try this? You're in a tree and you grab out to the next branches and stuff like that. And it's scarier than heck. And then what happens is we get older. We have people relying on us. like our family. And it's just kind of scary to make the next move when there's so much at stake if you mess up. And I think that's things that keep us from moving forward.
Well, let's talk about that. And how does one have faith that the next trapeze will be there? Because, of course, it's very easy for us to say that this is what you should do, but it's scary. So how do you overcome that fear?
Well, there's two things I'd like to touch on next. Number one is your quit team. And number two is getting your finances in order. So let's start with the quit team. And there's four components with that. Number one is the stakeholders. These are the people that are directly involved if you move forward or don't move forward. And typically, it's a spouse or somebody that's in the home with you that's heard you for years talk about, I'm sick of this job. I don't want to do this anymore. And they really, they pissed me off yesterday, and they will today, and they will tomorrow.
Right.
And they're sick of hearing it. And they want to help you move forward. So number one is the stakeholders. Number two are your partners, people that are involved in what you do. Like if they're selling real estate with you, they might be agents that are affected if you move. Number three are your mentors. These are people within Go Abundance. We have what we call a Go Pod. These are people that are your mastermind buddies and stuff like that, who have been hearing it for some time, and can help guide you. They kind of know you and know everything there is to know about you, whether this makes sense for you to stay or move. And number four is a coach. If you can hire a coach that can help you with doing the things that you must do to move forward. So there's the stakeholders, your partners, your mentors, and a coach. This is the crew that can help you know if it's time to stay or leave.
This is so important, making it easier for you to quit, building a community outside of your coworkers that are just trying to find out who can work more overtime, and you understanding that could be hollow for you in the long term, and building that community of mentors or peers in a mastermind group that can help normalize the fear of quitting for you. You're listening to Get Rich Education. We're talking with Tim Rhode, the author of the Quitters Manifesto. More when we come back. I'm your host, Keith Weinhold. There is upward pressure on rents, and you can make this actionable at our sister website, gremarketplace.com. This is where you can leverage my industry contacts to get started with rental property. I own properties with a lot of these same providers across different U.S. states. Most of these properties, which I've actually never seen in person before. And how can I have the confidence to own rental property without ever having seen it? Well, for one thing, I partner with these turnkey real estate companies, which you can do as well. I'll see you over there at GRE Marketplace. Hey, welcome back to GRE. We're talking with Tim Rhode, the author of the brand new book, The Quitters Manifesto. It's more aspirational than you might think. So much of it revolves around quitting, spending your time in a way that you're not passionate about, Tim. And I know one important piece that you mentioned just before the break about dealing with your fear is making sure that your finances are in order. Tell us more about that.
So the first thing to do is to get real with your finances. It's great to take a step back and look at, where am I with my finances? Do I have enough coming in to handle what my expenses? Do I have money in the bank? Do I have debt that I need to get rid of? Sometimes we need to take a step back in order to move forward. Another good thing to do is to get credit while you still can. You may be coming into a new time frame when you can't get credit. So why not get it now while you still have your job, and while you have the resources to qualify for a loan. So we suggest you take out a home equity loan and not only put it in your bank, but if it's from where you took it out, move it to another bank, because they can call these loans. and at any point. So we want to make sure you have a lot of money behind you, because sometimes that trapeze, you may fall, and it may be a little how can I put it, just a little bumpier ride than what you expect, because typically things take longer than what we think. So we strongly suggest you get your finances in order before you move forward while you have the job.
That is a good tactical piece. I have had a home equity line of credit frozen on me by my lender just like that. It's immediately frozen, and I could have drawn against more of that before that happened to me. So, of course, that's one important part, and kind of building that cushioning before that next trapeze comes into your hands.
Yeah, what happened to you is why we suggest you pull the money out, put it in another bank before they pull the note from you.
So these are good steps for tactically dealing with your fear. It's quite rational to have fear before you make a substantial lifestyle change, of course. And, Tim, to pull back and get more introspective once again, I know oftentimes you talk about the importance of your identity and finding out really who you are before you make such a big move. Can you tell us about the importance of your identity?
When I made my move, I was in Belize on vacation and decided, you know what? I never want to sell another home. And it kind of blew me away. It was like, it just happened out of the blue. Well, what are you going to do? Well, you just flipped a home. That went really well. What if you just never listed and sold another home, but you were your own best customer? So what I did is on the plane home, I wrote, Tim is now an investor plan. And if you follow Tony Robbins, he's got outcome, purpose, action plan. So the outcome was I never listed another home. The purpose is I'm sick of the old career. I want a new one. The action plan was where are you going to find your deals? Where are you going to get the money? Who's going to help you? So I literally changed my identity with a plan that kind of gave my brain new marching orders of where are you going with this new incarnation. And it just took, I took that plan and implemented it and kicked its butt. And I suggest you do the same thing.
Beginning with the end in mind. You said you never want to sell a home again. That's the end. And then you can work your way back from there. And what are those tactical steps to get there? Do you recommend even listing a date on a calendar? That's what makes it real. That's what helps make it a goal, a date in which you tell yourself you're never going to sell homes again by that point.
Absolutely. Now, in my case, I was on a plane and it was probably Friday and my new plan started Monday. So, mine was rapid. And by the way, I also didn't have money behind me. There were so many things I did wrong, because nobody had written the Quitters Manifesto for me to follow. So I did a lot of things wrong. I'll be very, very vulnerable and transparent about it. But if I had it to do over again, I absolutely, maybe I should have done 6 months, a year. But I did 2 days later.
And there's so much here within the context of one's greater life, Tim. You might be a husband, a father. You might need to know that you want to exercise a certain amount each day. So oftentimes it can come down to maybe juggling balls and then adding new ones in there or leaving certain balls out. Or how does one do that? I guess to continue with our circus analogies with the trapeze and the juggling.
There you go. You're getting you beginning to see a pattern here. So all of us have balls that we have to juggle. Okay, there's the career, there's the family, there's the exercise. You name some of them, and I'm asking like for what you're trying to do to move on to a new incarnation. It's a new ball. You need to be juggling, and that's the challenge. Is you're juggling these balls. You have you got a new career you want to add. How do you go back to the chasm I was talking about? How do you go from here to there and not drop all the balls that you currently have going? And boy, is this a challenge in itself. And sometimes we need to change something within ourselves. Maybe we're drinking a bit too much or staying out too late, or, there may be something in our own lives that needs to go as one of the balls that you're juggling, that can help you move forward. And the hard part of this is change. It really isn't easy. Adding a new career isn't easy. And I think that analogy of juggling balls is really analogous to what we're trying to do here is throw that extra ball in there, not lose them all, and make it to where you are on that trapeze, moving from one to the next, getting through the soul sucking, getting through the finances, and making sure that we get that last trapeze and we end up on the other side in what I call Newfoundland, where you were here and now you're there and you want to hit the ground running as fast as you can, and I think the ball analogy really helps you get there.
Yeah, maybe juggling's the right analogy because, for example, you can't just stop exercising for 6 months and then pick it right back up again and be where you were. So you have to keep some activities, in the air, rotating through that juggling as you're going. And would you agree that in order to add something new in your life, saying you're adding a new side hustle, for example, in order to build residual income so that you can quit, does adding something new to your life mean that you must give up something else?
That's interesting because in the book, we talk about side hustles and they can be detrimental. It could be. And I'm not talking about real estate. I don't think of that as a side hustle.
Right.
I think that as a almost part-time career that's helping you get this together. But so many times people are trying to have their day job. They're doing real estate and they're thinking about a third and fourth side hustle. And sometimes that may not serve you. And I'll give you another good analogy is it's hard enough to roll a wheelbarrow up a hill. And let's say that's your day job, and then you're doing your real estate as a second wheelbarrow, and then you try to do a third and a fourth and a fifth. And sometimes, and especially within a healthy tribe like GoBundance, you hear so many great ideas. And it's hard to, just play your game and not get caught up on the latest trend, if you will.
Pushing wheelbarrows up a hill. Another good analogy. I just don't happen to have seen that one at the circus. And Tim, I know one thing that you'd like to talk about, including in the book, the Quitters Manifesto, is the importance of sometimes knowing when to block out the noise and get quiet in nature. Oftentimes, biking or hiking or skiing or running is the time where I get the headspace and the mental clarity to really think about some things that I haven't otherwise. So can you tell us about the importance of getting quiet in nature?
Yeah, and I want to talk about how bad it was for me. Like when I was in the trenches, I didn't get quiet in nature. I didn't have time. I was so busy. I had to walk out the door of where I was selling real estate into an alleyway and walk up and down that alleyway because it was the only place where I could get quiet and think and just connect with source. So that's as bad as it ever was. Now my life is, 90% getting the goods in the woods, doing what I love to do. Go back to interest over obligation. Back in the day, I was all obligation. I got very little interest. It was down a freaking alleyway was all I had. So once I quote quit and got really a lot of time in nature. I'd ski 100 days a year. I'd go to the ocean and go abalone diving, and I got a lot of time to just get really quiet. So that is such a huge piece of this book and of life is just that ability to get quiet and connect to God. I think is so powerful, and it's such a tool that many don't. Unfortunately, we're so busy on that hamster wheel doing all the things we have to do to not get quiet and get the goods in the woods. So that's mine. And there is no circus involved in that piece.
No circus in the woods. And yeah, of course, different things work for different people too. I was recently listening to Mark Zuckerberg say that he got away from running in order to take up MMA, mixed martial arts, because running actually gave him too much time to think and to overthink things. But it sounds like getting quiet in nature is something that works for you and I too.
Yeah. He was on Joe Rogan. Is that what you listened to?
Yeah.
I heard that. It was a great interview. For me, yes, meditating and just getting really connected is one thing. But for me, going up a mountain with my heart rate elevated, really, it takes it to another piece to where I can think about things like, why did I react that way when my wife said this? You know what I mean? To really have those conversations and just be inspired. And every now and then, like I'd be out in the middle of nowhere and get the most amazing, grandiose ideas, and I wouldn't have anything to write it down. It was like, oh boy, you got to keep this thought. This is a really good one. You know what I mean? And you just get touched with these, these ideas that, I'm sorry, Mr. Zuckerberg, but I think they're genius. So he's probably get too many, and he's got such a big, platform. I bet it is challenging.
Yeah, his problems are bigger than almost anyone else's in the world, perhaps, too, which sure is an important thing to keep in mind. So, well, Tim, as we wind down here, maybe the listener and the viewer here is thinking, now, how will I know really in my life when the pain is high enough in order to prompt that change in my life? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, we got a really funny piece in the book. It's about a salesman. He goes and visits a farmer, and he notices that farmer's dog's over there howling. He goes, "Hey, what's wrong with your dog?" Farmer says, "Oh, he's sitting on a nail." He goes, "Well, why doesn't he move?" He says, "Guess the nail's not hurting him enough yet." Think about that in our life. What's that nail for you that it's there? And sometimes it's really barking at you. And other times it's, you're just sitting there and it's just not hurting you enough. And I think that nail could be the soul-sucking audit asking you to take action that you're ignoring.
The name of the book is The Quitters Manifesto. Quit a job you hate for the work you love. Tim, tell us where we can get the book.
Yeah, it's available on Amazon. It's available on Audible. We do have you can go to quittersmanifestobook.com, and we have extra tools for you to get in. And if anybody's interested in coaching, we have a coaching program for it.
Tim Rode, it's been valuable. Thanks so much for coming onto the show.
Hey, Keith, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, strong insights from Tim here today. It's helpful to reiterate that different things do work for different people. For example, I have never meditated, not once in my life. Maybe that works for you. I hope that it does. I also don't wake up in the morning and do all these rituals like kiss the ground and look overhead and say Alleluia and all these sorts of rituals. Every single one of us has 24 hours in a day. You do and I do. The importance is the quality of your thoughts and actions, and that starts with a really important word, and that word is focus. Focus is a big deal. Did you ever notice how you seem to get so much more done when your iPhone is over on the charger and not within reach? Yeah, if you do, that's a focus problem, and that's how to solve that one. Get your phone out of reach. One of the hardest things that I regularly do that hurts me in the short term and helps me in the long term is say that I'm in a focused zone. It's the late morning, and say I'm writing an article for Forbes on the laptop. What I do sometimes is I shut that down fast. I fold up my laptop and I go exercise because I know that my intensity for exercise wanes in the afternoon. So I want to get it done by the morning, and my future self is going to thank me for a habit like that. I've got 2 quick announcements for you here. Sign up for our upcoming webinar. It is going to be October 20th for Jacksonville, Florida. That's just 3 days away. And the benefit of attending the webinar is that it is live. I'm going to be there with you and the property provider. We're going to look at individual properties that you can buy in the path of progress. And then you can ask questions at the end of the conversation. It is free. Sign up at grewebinars.com for our Jacksonville webinar. Brand new build properties that provide cash flow. Again, it's grewebinars.com. And then secondly, our valuable Don't Quit Your Daydream newsletter is full of real estate investing industry trends and forecasts in broader economic forces that are going to affect you in the future and more. When we have job openings here at GRE, as we keep growing, they are announced in the letter as well. And now you can easily sign up for the letter by text. If you aren't one of the many subscribers expanding your means with my letter, you can simply text GRE to 66866 for our Don't Quit Your Daydream letter. It is free, and I write every single word of that letter myself. I don't think that there are very many founders that do that. The letter is from me to you. Again, you can sign up by simply texting GRE to 66866 for our letter. I trust that you've gotten value from new insights on how to quit your job. Until next week, I'm your host, Keith Weinhold. Don't quit your daydream.